"Daddy, is my sister coming today?" Father turns pale upon hearing, because he only had one son. David Mitchell never imagined that a simple question over breakfast could turn his life completely upside down. At 35, the Boston-based architect had devoted all his efforts to raising little Ethan alone, his only son of 5 years, ever since his wife abandoned them when the boy was just a baby. It was on an ordinary Thursday morning that everything changed. David was pouring chocolate milk for Ethan when the curly-haired, bright-eyed boy asked with the innocence typical of his age, "Daddy, is my sister coming to live with us today?" David choked on his coffee, dropping the cup and staring at his son in shock. What sister? He only had one child. He was absolutely certain of that. "What are you talking about, son?" David asked, trying to keep his voice calm as he wiped up the spilled coffee. "You don't have a sister." Ethan tilted his head and smiled, a smile full of childlike certainty. "Yes, I do, Daddy. The girl with hair like mine but long. She looks like the pretty lady in the photo you keep in the drawer." David felt his blood run cold. The photo he kept hidden. Could Ethan have found that old picture of Jennifer, his great love from his youth? The woman who had vanished from his life without explanation 6 years ago, taking with her all the dreams they had, built together. "Ethan, did you go through my drawers?" he asked, sounding harsher than he meant to. The boy lowered his eyes, guilty. "It was an accident, Daddy. I was looking for the blue toy car you put away, sorry." David took a deep breath, trying to gather his thoughts. That was all it was. The boy saw an old photo and imagined a sister. Nothing to worry about. "It's okay, son, but that woman in the photo is just an old friend Daddy knew a long time ago. You don't have a sister." "But she said she's my sister," Ethan insisted. "Who said?" "The new girl at my school. She has the same smile as me, Aunt," Susan said. "And she told me her little brother's name is Ethan, and her daddy's an architect, just like you." David's breath caught. A coincidence. It had to be. Boston was a big city, full of architects and boys named Ethan. Still, something deep inside him screamed that something strange was happening. "What's the girl's name, Mutt?" he asked, trying to sound casual as he finished packing Ethan's lunchbox. "She's called—" The boy squinted, concentrating. "Leah. No, Emma. Yeah, Emma." Emma, a beautiful name. A name he and Jennifer had chosen together one winter night in Boston, while planning a future that never came to be. "If we have a girl, we'll name her Emma." The words echoed in his memory, making his stomach twist. "Come on, Ethan, time for school," David said, glancing at the clock, trying to shake off the strange feeling gripping him. As he drove through the chilly city that morning, David couldn't stop thinking. Was it just a coincidence? A child's game? Or was there something he didn't know? After dropping Ethan off at school instead of heading to his architecture firm, he parked and watched the playground. He needed to see this girl for himself. Minutes later, he spotted an elegant woman in a red coat rushing in, holding the hand of a curly-haired little girl. David's heart nearly stopped when he recognized that graceful walk, that unmistakable posture. Jennifer. After 6 years, she was back in Boston. And with a girl who looked about 5 years old, the same age as Ethan. The little curly-haired girl hugged her mother before running into school. Even from a distance, David could see the child's features clearly. The same face shape he saw every morning in the mirror, the same smile he'd inherited from his own mother. "My God," he murmured to himself, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Could it be? In that moment, he decided he needed to know the truth. If Jennifer had returned to Boston with a daughter who might be his, he had the right to know. More importantly, Ethan had the right to meet his sister if she really existed. Filled with a courage he didn't know he possessed, David got out of the car and walked to the school entrance. He asked to speak with Ethan's teacher, citing a family emergency. Susan Parker, a middle-aged woman with a maternal air, greeted him in the teacher's lounge with a concerned smile. "Is something wrong with Ethan, Mr. Mitchell?" No, he's fine. Actually, I came to talk about something else. Ethan mentioned a new classmate, a girl named Emma. He said she claimed to be his sister." David's voice faltered on the last words. The teacher's expression shifted. A mix of surprise and discomfort crossed her face. "Oh, I see," she said, adjusting her glasses. "Yes, we have a new student, Emma Watson. She arrived 2 weeks ago, transferred from Philadelphia. She's a lovely child, very bright. And yes, there was an incident. She's been telling classmates that Ethan is her brother. I assumed it was just, you know how children imagine things." David's throat went dry. "Her last name is Watson. Jennifer Watson is her mother." The teacher nodded, looking increasingly uneasy. "Yes, her mother is Jennifer, a very elegant and attentive woman. She said they were returning to Boston after years living down south. The father hasn't shown up yet, I assume." "There is no father," David interrupted, unable to hold back. "At least not that I know of." At the teacher's confused look, he took a deep breath and explained, "Jennifer was my girlfriend over 6 years ago. We broke up abruptly. She just vanished from my life. A few months later, I married someone else who left me right after Ethan was born. I never heard from Jennifer again, until now. And now I find out she has a daughter the same age as my son, who claims to be his sister." The teacher brought a hand to her mouth, startled. "Mr. Mitchell, I had no idea." She hesitated, then made a decision and opened a drawer in her desk. "Maybe this will help clarify things." She pulled out a drawing made with colored markers, typical of a 5-year-old. It showed 4 stick figures: a tall man, a boy, a girl with curly hair, and a woman, all holding hands under a big yellow sun. At the top, in large, uneven letters, it read, "My family." "Emma drew this on her first day," Susan explained. "When I asked who the people were, she pointed and said, 'This is my daddy, this is my brother Ethan, this is me, and this is my mommy.' I didn't think much of it. Figured it was just an idealized family like many children draw." David took the paper with trembling hands. He studied the drawing for long seconds, feeling a swirl of emotions he couldn't name. Could this really be true? Had Jennifer hidden his daughter from him all these years? "I need to talk to her," he murmured, more to himself than to the teacher. "Mr. Mitchell," Susan's voice was gentle but firm, "if I may offer some advice, be careful. Children aren't to blame for adults' problems. Whatever the truth is, remember Ethan and Emma's well-being comes first." David nodded, his head spinning with 1,000 thoughts. He thanked the teacher and left the school. In the car, he pulled out his phone and, after a few hesitant minutes, typed Jennifer Watson into social media. He needed more answers before confronting her. Her page appeared immediately. It looked different from how he remembered, her hair shorter, her face more mature, but undeniably beautiful. Among the recent photos were several with a curly-haired little girl. In one of them, celebrating Emma's 5th birthday, in front of a cake decorated with ballerinas. The posting date matched exactly the period after their breakup. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot, as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. David felt the world collapse around him. The evidence was right there before his eyes. The girl had been born about 9 months after Jennifer disappeared from his life. The curly hair, the shape of her face, even the smile was identical to his own childhood smile. How had he not noticed before? How could Jennifer have hidden something so important? With trembling hands, he dialed his mother's number, Mrs. Barbara. If anyone could help him understand this situation, it was her. Besides, his mother had always been close to Jennifer. Maybe she knew something. "Son, is something wrong?" Mrs. Barbara's worried voice answered after 3 rings. "Mom, I need to talk to you. It's important. I'm coming over now." 20. Minutes later, David parked in front of the modest house where he'd grown up, in the Brookline neighborhood. Mrs. Barbara waited at the door, her wrinkled face full of concern. As soon as he stepped inside, David got straight to the point. "Mom, Jennifer is back in Boston." Mrs. Barbara's reaction wasn't surprise, as he'd expected, but obvious discomfort. She looked away, walked to the kitchen, and began making coffee without a word. "You knew?" David asked, following her. "Knew what, son?" she replied, still avoiding his gaze. "That Jennifer came back, and that she has a daughter. a little girl named Emma, 5 years old, who's in the same class as Ethan and who coincidentally tells everyone he's her brother. The sound of a cup shattering on the floor was all the answer David needed. Mrs. Barbara had dropped it and now leaned against the counter, pale as if she'd seen a ghost. "Mom, what's going on? Did you know about this?" David pressed, helping her sit down. Mrs. Barbara took a deep breath, finally finding the courage to meet her son's eyes. "I didn't know she was back, David. I swear I didn't. But I knew about the girl, yes." She paused, swallowing hard. "I got a letter 5 years ago. Jennifer wrote to me from Philadelphia asking me to keep it a secret. She sent a photo of a newborn. Said she was your daughter but would never tell you. That she was starting a new life far away, and it would be better for everyone." David felt like he'd been punched in the gut. His own mother had hidden the existence of his daughter from him for 5 years. "How could you do this to me?" His voice came out strangled. "I had a right to know." "I know, son, I know," tears streamed down Mrs. Barbara's wrinkled face. "But Jennifer made me promise. She said you'd moved on, married someone else, that you'd be happier without this burden. I didn't want to ruin your life." "Ruin my life?" David stood up, furious. "You think knowing I have a daughter would ruin my life? For God's sake, Mom, 5 years I've missed of that child's life." "She said you didn't want the baby, David," Mrs. Barbara whispered. "She said when she told you about the pregnancy, you asked her to get an abortion, that you weren't ready. That's why she left." David felt his blood boil. A lie. A blatant lie. Jennifer had never told him about any pregnancy. She'd simply vanished from his life after a stupid fight about future plans. He'd gotten a job in New York and wanted her to come with him. She wanted to stay in Boston, close to family. They argued, he traveled to see the new office, and when he returned a week later, she had vanished. Phone turned off, apartment empty, as if she'd never existed. "She lied to you," said David, struggling to control his anger. "She never told me about any pregnancy. If she had, my God, everything would have been different." Mrs. Barbara seemed genuinely confused, but her letter, she sounded so sincere, so hurt. "I need to find her," David decided. "I need to look her in the eye and ask why she did this, why she hid my daughter from me all these years." "Son, calm down," Mrs. Barbara pleaded, holding his hand. "Think of the children. Ethan, the little girl. Don't do anything rash." David took a deep breath, trying to steady himself. His mother was right. He couldn't just barge into Jennifer's life demanding answers. Children were involved, his son and possibly his daughter. He needed to be strategic. "I'll observe her first," he decided. "Find out where she's living. With whom. Understand the situation before approaching." "And how will you do that?" Mrs. Barbara asked, still worried. "I'll ask Michael for help," David replied, referring to his childhood best friend, now a private investigator. "He can discreetly find out where she's staying, if there's a partner in the picture, the legal status of the girl." In the days that followed, David lived in a growing state of anxiety. On one hand, he couldn't stop thinking about the possibility of having a daughter. On the other, he feared uncovering more lies, more pain. Ethan kept talking about his sister at school, sharing innocent details that only strengthened David's certainty. Emma was his daughter. Michael, his investigator friend, confirmed Jennifer had recently moved to an apartment in Back Bay, an upscale neighborhood in Boston. She lived only with her daughter, no apparent partner, and worked as a manager at an art gallery downtown. She'd moved from Philadelphia less than a month ago and enrolled Emma in the same school as Ethan on a mutual friend's recommendation, unaware of the coincidence. "Are you sure you want to do this, man?" Michael asked as he handed over the report. "This could open Pandora's box." "I have to know, Michael. If that girl is my daughter, nothing in the world will stop me from being part of her life." The chance to confront Jennifer came naturally. The following Friday, during an afternoon at Boston Common with Ethan, David spotted from a distance the elegant figure of Jennifer sitting on a bench, watching a curly-haired girl play on the swings. His heart raced. It was now or never. "Ethan, keep playing here on the slide, okay? Daddy's going to talk to someone over there." The boy nodded, distracted by other kids. David walked slowly toward the bench, his heart pounding. 6 years had passed since he'd last seen that face, 6 years of unanswered questions. "Hello, Jennifer," he said, stopping in front of her. She looked up, and David saw the exact moment recognition, then panic, flashed across her features. She paled, standing quickly. "David," she murmured, glancing nervously around as if searching for an escape. "What are you doing here?" "I think you know," he replied, keeping his voice calm despite the storm inside. "Ethan and Emma are in the same class. Did you really think this would never happen?" Jennifer looked like she might collapse. Her gaze darted to her daughter, who swung happily, oblivious to the drama unfolding. "It wasn't planned," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't know your son went there. When I found out, it was already too late. Emma had already befriended him." "Friendship?" David let out a humorless laugh. "Jennifer, your daughter is telling everyone she's my son's sister. Do you know why? Because she probably is. Because they share the same father, don't they?" Tears began streaming down Jennifer's face. She shook her head, unable to respond. "Why, Jennifer?" David continued, his voice thick with emotion. "Why did you hide this from me? Why did you lie to my mother, telling her I didn't want the baby? You stole 5 years of my daughter's life from me." "It's not that simple," Jennifer sobbed. "You don't understand." At that moment, they were interrupted by a tall, well-dressed man who approached, placing a protective arm around Jennifer's shoulders. "Everything all right, sweetheart?" he asked, eyeing David suspiciously. "It's fine, Brian," she replied, quickly wiping her tears. "This is David, an old friend. David, this is Brian, my boyfriend." Brian extended his hand, which David shook mechanically, still processing the situation. So Jennifer had a boyfriend now, a man who likely believed he was Emma's father, or at least acted like it. "David is the father of Emma's little friend, Ethan," Jennifer explained, trying to sound normal. "Ah yes, the famous Ethan." Brian smiled, seeming relieved to understand the situation. "Emma won't stop talking about him. Kids, right? They bond so quickly." David watched the interaction closely. Brian seemed like a decent man, but there was something odd about his behavior. He avoided looking directly at Emma the entire time, as if the girl were an uncomfortable subject. "Brian, could you grab some juice for Emma? She must be thirsty after all that playing," Jennifer asked, clearly trying to get a moment alone with David. As soon as her boyfriend walked away, Jennifer stepped closer to David, speaking in a low, urgent voice. "Please, David, don't do this. Not now. We just moved here. We're starting a new life." "She's my daughter, isn't she?" David interrupted, looking straight into Jennifer's eyes. The silence that followed was answer enough. "We need to talk, Jennifer. Not here, not now, but we need to talk. I have the right to know, and Emma has the right to know her father." "Brian is her father," Jennifer tried to argue, but her trembling voice betrayed the lie. "He's raised her since she was little. He's the only father she knows." "Then why is she telling everyone Ethan is her brother?" David countered. "Kids sense things, Jennifer. They know when something isn't right." Just then, a cheerful shout interrupted the tense conversation. Ethan came running toward them, followed by little Emma. David's heart stopped as he saw, for the first time up close, the girl who might be his daughter. It was like looking at a younger, feminine version of himself. "Dad!" Ethan called excitedly. "Look who I found. It's my friend Emma." The girl smiled shyly, studying David curiously. Her eyes, he realized with a pang in his chest, were identical to his. "Hello, Emma," David said, crouching to her level, fighting to keep his emotions in check. "It's so nice to meet you." "Are you Ethan's dad?" she asked, tilting her head in a way that reminded him so much of his mother, Mrs. Barbara, that it nearly took his breath away. "Yes, I am," he replied, his throat tight. "You have the same smile," the girl observed innocently. David felt his eyes burn. The same smile. Of course they did, because he was the father of both children standing before him, even if only one of them knew it. Jennifer quickly intervened, taking Emma's hand. "Come on, sweetheart, it's getting late. We have to go home. Brian already got your juice." "But Mom, I want to play more with Ethan," the girl protested. "The other day, Emma," Jennifer replied firmly, casting a pleading look at David. Say goodbye. Bye, Ethan, bye, Uncle, said Emma, waving sadly as her mother led her away. David stood still, watching them walk off, feeling a mix of anger and sadness so deep he could barely breathe. Beside him, Ethan tugged on his shirt. Dad, Emma is my real sister, right? I knew it. David didn't know how to respond. How could he explain something so complicated to a 5-year-old when he himself barely understood what was happening? Let's go home, son, he finally said, taking the boy's hand. We have a lot to talk about. That night, after putting Ethan to bed, David sat on his porch with a glass of wine, trying to process everything that had happened. His phone buzzed with a message. It was from Jennifer. Can we talk tomorrow? Just the two of us. Beacon Hill. Coffee, 10 a.m. I have a lot to explain. David replied with a simple, I'll be there. He knew he wouldn't sleep that night, with so many questions swirling in his mind. Why had Jennifer hidden their daughter? What made her come back to Boston after all this time? And what would he do now, knowing he had a 5-year-old daughter who didn't even know him? The next morning, Beacon Hill Coffee was nearly empty when David arrived, 15 minutes early. He chose a discreet table in the back where he could watch the entrance. Right at 10 a.m., Jennifer walked in. She looked as elegant as ever, but David could see the exhaustion on her face, likely from a night as sleepless as his. Thank you for coming, she said, sitting across from him. I didn't have much choice, David replied. I think you owe me some explanations. Jennifer nodded, ordering a coffee from the waitress before speaking. Where do you want me to start? From the beginning. Why did you disappear from my life without a word 6 years ago? And why did you hide my daughter from me? Jennifer took a deep breath, as if gathering courage. I left Boston because I found something that destroyed me, David. I saw messages on your phone, exchanged with another woman. Love messages, plans for the future. I thought you were cheating, that the story about the job in New York was just an excuse to break up with me. David frowned, confused. What are you talking about? I never messaged another woman while we were together. Her name was Rachel, Jennifer continued. You were arranging meetings, talking about how I could never find out. Suddenly, understanding struck David like lightning. Rachel Mitchell, my cousin. Now it was Jennifer's turn to look confused. Your cousin? Yes, my cousin. From Miami, who was helping me plan a surprise for you, David explained, running his hand through his hair in frustration. We were organizing a beach weekend to propose to you, Jennifer. That's why it was a secret. That's why you could never know, Jennifer paled, covering her mouth with her hands. But the messages, she signed them with kisses, with hearts. Rachel's always been like that with everyone in the family. My God, Jennifer, you really thought I was cheating? Why didn't you confront me? Why didn't you ask? I was. Hurt, angry, she answered, tears starting to fall. I left town that same day, went to stay with an aunt in Philadelphia. I just wanted time away to clear my head. Then I found out I was pregnant. And you didn't think that deserved a phone call? David's voice was heavy with pain and anger. Even if you believed I cheated, didn't I deserve to know I was going to be a father? I tried calling you once, Jennifer admitted, 3 weeks after I left, but a woman answered. She said you couldn't come to the phone because you were busy picking out furniture for your new apartment. I thought I had moved on so quickly. David closed his eyes, remembering. Melissa, his ex-wife, Ethan's mother. They started dating 2 months after Jennifer disappeared, in a desperate attempt to forget the pain. A rushed marriage that ended as soon as Ethan was born, when Melissa decided she wasn't ready to be a mother. It was Melissa, he explained. We stayed together for a while after you vanished. A mistake, we realized soon enough. She got pregnant, we married, but she left me right after Ethan was born, said she wasn't ready to be a mom. That's why I'm raising my son alone. The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of 6 years of misunderstandings, pain and missed opportunities. What about Brian? David finally asked. Does he know he's not Emma's father? Jennifer nodded slowly. He knows. We met when Emma was 2. He always knew the truth, accepted the situation, but she hesitated. He never managed to form a real bond with her. He tries, he puts in the effort, but something's always missing. I think Emma feels it too. Is that why you came back to Boston? Because it wasn't working? Partly, Jennifer admitted. Brian got a job offer here. I thought it'd be a chance to start fresh, away from the memories in Philadelphia. I never imagined Emma and Ethan would end up in the same school, let alone the same class. By the time I found out, it was too late. They'd become instant friends, as if they knew. Kids sense these things, David said. Blood calls to blood. Another silence settled between them as they absorbed everything that had been said. What do we do now? Jennifer finally asked. David looked straight into her eyes, determined. I want to be part of my daughter's life, Jennifer. I want to know her, love her, be there for her from now on. I lost 5 years. I'll never get back. I won't lose another day. And how would we do that? She asked, sounding genuinely lost. Just tell her Brian isn't her father, that her real dad is her new little friend's father? I don't know yet, David admitted, but we'll find a way, with professionals if needed. What I do know is I won't stay away from my daughter now that I've found her. Jennifer studied him for a long moment, then nodded, slowly. You're right. Emma deserves to know her real father, and from what I see, you've become a good dad to Ethan. She paused. But we need to do this carefully, at the right time. Please. I agree, David said. For now, we can say, we're old friends. Explain why the kids look so alike. Give Emma time to get used to me before we tell her the truth. And Brian? The question hung in the air. David hadn't thought about Jennifer's boyfriend, the man who believed he was raising his daughter. He knows he's not Emma's biological father, he said finally. He'll have to understand. Jennifer didn't seem entirely convinced, but nodded. We'll try then, step by step. In the weeks that followed, David was carefully introduced into Emma's life. Chance meetings at the park, weekend playdates with Ethan, always under the pretense of old friends reconnecting. Brian seemed uneasy but didn't openly object. David discovered his daughter was a bright, creative, sweet girl. She loved to draw, just like he had as a child, and had an infectious laugh that warmed his heart. With every moment together, he felt their bond growing, even if Emma didn't yet know he was her father. Ethan, meanwhile, kept insisting Emma was his sister, much to the adults' embarrassment. Kids have intuition, Mrs. Barbara would say. She'd met her granddaughter and immediately fallen in love with her. The plan was working, until an unexpected incident changed everything. On a Saturday in October, during a picnic in the park, with both families, Emma suddenly turned pale and collapsed to the ground unconscious. Minutes of panic followed, with Jennifer screaming desperately while David called an ambulance. At the hospital, the girl was quickly attended to, while the adults waited anxiously in the waiting room. Finally, a doctor appeared with a serious expression. Mrs. Watson, he called, can we speak privately about your daughter? We're her parents, David said automatically, standing up beside Jennifer. We can hear together. The doctor, confused, looked at Brian, who remained seated, clear discomfort on his face. He's Emma's biological father, Jennifer quickly explained. What happened to our daughter, doctor? The doctor led them to a private room, where he explained the situation. Emma had an episode of cardiac arrhythmia. She's stable now, but we need to investigate further. This type of issue often has a genetic component. Does either of you have a family history of heart problems? David felt his blood run cold. His father had died of a heart attack at 50, and he himself had been treated for arrhythmia as a child. I do, he said, his voice strained. I had arrhythmia as a child. My father died of heart problems. The doctor nodded, jotting down the information. That explains a lot. I'll order specific tests based on this history. It's very important we have the correct family history in cases like this. Are you certain he's the biological father? Absolutely, Jennifer replied, finally admitting aloud what she had denied for so long. After the doctor left, a heavy silence fell over them. It was Brian who broke it, standing up with a resigned expression. I think my role here is over, he said, looking at Jennifer. Deep down, I always knew this day would come. Brian, please, Aunt Jennifer began, but he stopped her with a gesture. It's okay, Jennifer, truly. You know I could never really be a father to Emma, no matter how hard I tried. Maybe because somehow she always knew I wasn't her father. He looked at David. Take good care of them. With that, he left the room, leaving David and Jennifer alone with the reality they could no longer deny or postpone. I guess we have no choice now, Jennifer said, wiping away tears. We need to tell Emma the truth, and Ethan too. David nodded, feeling a mix of sadness for the situation and relief at finally being able to take on his role as Emma's father. We'll do it together, he said, taking Jennifer's hand. It's time for our daughter to know her real family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, the days that followed were a time of adjustment for everyone. Emma remained in the hospital for 3 days while undergoing tests and starting treatment to control her arrhythmia. During that time, David never left her side, taking turns with Jennifer in caring for her. It was in this setting, with the little girl still connected to heart monitors, that they decided to tell the truth. Emma, sweetheart, Jennifer began, sitting on the edge of the hospital bed holding her daughter's hand. Remember how you always say Ethan looks like your brother? The girl nodded, looking curiously from her mother to David, who stood nervously by the bed, more anxious than he'd ever been in his life. That's because he really is your brother, Jennifer continued softly. David isn't just Ethan's father, he's your father too. Emma was silent for a moment, processing the information with a seriousness surprising for her 5 years. I knew it, she said finally, with the unshakable certainty of children. We have the same smile and the same hair. David felt his eyes fill with tears. He knelt to his daughter's level, gathering the courage to speak. I didn't know you existed, Emma, he said, his voice choked. If I had, I would have been with you from the very first day. But now that I've found you, I want to be your father if you'll let me. The girl studied him deeply with those eyes so much like his own. Are you going to live with us now? She asked with childlike simplicity. David exchanged a quick glance with Jennifer before answering, No, sweetheart, your mother and I aren't together, but I'll always be part of your life just like I am with Ethan, and you two can be together whenever you want. Like a different kind of family? Emma asked. Exactly, Jennifer smiled, relieved by her daughter's understanding. A different kind of family, but still a family. Telling Ethan was even easier. The boy simply broke into a huge grin and exclaimed, I knew it. I always knew Emma was my sister. For him, it was just confirmation of something his young heart had recognized from their first meeting. Adjusting to this new reality wasn't without challenges. Brian Hurt decided to return to Philadelphia, leaving a void in Jennifer's life and, to a lesser extent, in Emma's, who had grown used to his presence. David, meanwhile, had to completely reorganize his routine to include a new child in his life. Mrs. Barbara proved to be a crucial ally during this transition. With her experience and unconditional love, she helped create a routine that worked for everyone. The children began splitting their time between both homes, and slowly, a new normal took shape. Emma's heart condition, though concerning, was under control with medication and regular checkups. David, who knew the condition well from his own experience, became a vital support for his daughter, teaching her to manage its limitations without letting them define her life. One Sunday afternoon, about 3 months after the hospital revelation, the families gathered for lunch at Mrs. Barbara's house. It was a special occasion, their first Christmas together. The abundant table, the apartment decorated with colorful lights, and most importantly, the 2 children running and laughing through the house, created an atmosphere of genuine happiness. David, watching the scene from the balcony, finally felt complete. Jennifer approached, handing him a glass of wine. What are you thinking about? She asked, leaning on the railing beside him. How life takes its turns, he replied. 6 months ago, I didn't even know I had a daughter. Now I can't imagine life without her. Jennifer smiled softly, her expression carrying both joy and a hint of regret. I'm sorry for all the lost time, David. I should have looked for you, should have asked instead of just assuming the worst. And I should have looked for you too when you disappeared, he admitted. I guess we both made mistakes. What matters is we're here now doing our best for them. Together they looked inside where Ethan and Emma were helping their grandmother arrange presents under the small tree. The resemblance between the children, now that they knew the truth, was striking, not just in their features but in their gestures, the way they tilted their heads when concentrating, their easy, contagious smiles. "They'll be okay, won't they?" Jennifer asked, a trace of worry in her voice. "This unconventional family we've made." David wrapped an arm around her shoulders in a comforting gesture, something he hadn't done in over 6 years. "They will. We'll make sure of it." Just then, as if to confirm his words, the children came running over, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Dad, Mom, Grandma said we can open one present now," exclaimed Emma, still getting used to calling David Dad, but doing so with increasing ease. "Just one," added Ethan, jumping with excitement. "Come on, David and—" Jennifer exchanged a knowing glance before following the children inside. It wasn't the traditional family they had imagined when they were young and in love, but it was a family, built on new foundations of respect and mutual understanding. Time moved forward. The seasons changed. The harsh Boston winter gave way to spring, then summer, and again to autumn. A routine settled in. During the week, the children stayed with their respective mothers, Ethan with the nanny Debbie, who had cared for him since he was a baby while David worked, and on weekends, they alternated between their parents' homes. Emma adapted surprisingly well to the new reality. Her heart condition, properly medicated and monitored, rarely kept her from living a normal life. She flourished under the love of her newly discovered father, developing a special bond with him based on shared interests. They both loved drawing, building things, and solving puzzles. Ethan, in turn, delighted in his role as the older brother, by just 3 months, as he liked to remind everyone. Protective and companionable, he took it upon himself to teach Emma everything he knew, from how to ride a bike to standing up to bullies on the playground. After Brian's departure, Jennifer focused on work and her daughter. The art gallery she managed became a success in Boston, and she finally seemed at peace with her past decisions. David, meanwhile, saw his career as an architect take off. Inspired by his new family reality, he specialized in adaptable and flexible residential designs that could accommodate different family arrangements, a passion born from his own experience. The children's 6th birthday, celebrated together given how close their dates were, became a milestone for everyone. It was the first big celebration of their new family, bringing together friends, schoolmates, and relatives from both sides. During the party, held in David's backyard, Mrs. Barbara approached her son as he watched the children play. "You know what I'm thinking," she said, following his gaze to her grandchildren. "What, Mom?" "That sometimes we need to lose something precious to appreciate what truly matters." She paused thoughtfully. "You and Jennifer lost years together, that's true. But look at what you gained in the process. 2 wonderful children and the chance to be better people, better parents than you might have been before." David reflected on his mother's words. There was truth in them. The impulsive young man he'd been 6 years ago probably wouldn't have become the patient, present father he was now. The pain of separation, the experience of raising Ethan, alone after Melissa's abandonment, it had all shaped him in ways he couldn't have imagined. "Maybe you're right, Mom," he agreed, putting an arm around her shoulders. "But I still wonder sometimes." He didn't need to finish the thought. Mrs. Barbara knew exactly what he meant. The what-if that still haunted his mind now and then. What if Jennifer had told the truth from the start? What if they had never separated? What would their lives be like now? "There's no use looking back, son," the wise woman advised. "What matters is the path ahead." The path ahead, however, wouldn't be without obstacles. About 8 months after the family reunion, a new challenge arose. Melissa, Ethan's birth mother, unexpectedly reappeared, claiming she wanted to be part of the life of the son she had abandoned years before. The request left David torn. On one hand, he believed every child deserved to know their birth mother. His own experience with Emma proved that. On the other hand, he feared that Melissa, always unpredictable, might drift in and out of Ethan's life, causing more harm than good. Surprisingly, it was Jennifer who helped him navigate this complicated situation. "You need to give her a chance to prove she's changed," she advised during one of their conversations. which had become regular as they coordinated their children's lives. But set clear boundaries. Supervise visits at first, no promises. You can't keep for Ethan. David followed her advice. The first meetings between Ethan and his birth mother were tense and uncomfortable. Melissa, now remarried and seemingly more stable, appeared genuinely remorseful and determined to build a relationship with her son. Ethan, initially confused, slowly began to accept this new figure in his life. "She's my mum, but not like how you are to Emma," the boy explained to Jennifer one day, with the simple wisdom of children. "More like an aunt I haven't seen in a while." The remark touched Jennifer deeply, as she had become a constant maternal presence in Ethan's life, just as David was a father figure to Emma. The bonds they'd formed weren't conventional, but they were strong and true. Amid these new family adjustments, David and Jennifer found themselves growing closer. Conversations about the children often led to other topics: work, dreams, shared memories. The pain of the past gradually gave way to something different. A mutual understanding and deep respect built on shared experiences. One winter evening, after a school meeting discussing the children's progress, David invited Jennifer for coffee. Sitting in a cozy cafe in Boston's historic district, the conversation flowed naturally until he finally gathered the courage to ask the question he'd been considering for weeks. "Jennifer, I know our history is complicated and we've built a dynamic that works for everyone, but I've been thinking..." He paused, searching for the right words. "Could we try again? Just us. Not for what we had in the past or just for the kids, but for who we are now." Jennifer looked at him in surprise, then with thoughtful consideration. "We're not the same people, David," she said finally. "What we had was destroyed by misunderstandings and pride," he finished. "I know I'm not suggesting we go back to what we were. I'm proposing we discover what we could be now, as the people we've become." She didn't answer immediately, weighing the idea. The past 18 months had been a journey of self-discovery and healing for both of them. They'd learned to be co-parents, then friends, building a trust neither had thought possible at the start. "Let's take it slow," she said at last, a small smile forming on her lips. "One step at a time, for us and for the kids." And so began a new chapter in the story of their unconventional family. David and Jennifer started a cautious relationship, aware that the past couldn't be erased, but could serve as a foundation for something new and potentially stronger. When the children were told about this new dynamic between their parents, they reacted with innocent excitement. "Does that mean we'll all live together?" Emma asked, eyes shining at the possibility. "Not yet, sweetheart," Jennifer replied, exchanging a knowing glance with David. "For now, we're just rediscovering what it's like to be together." "Like dating," Ethan interjected, making the classic face kids do when confronted with adult romance. "Something like that," David chuckled, ruffling his son's hair. "We're figuring out what works best for our family." Time passed and the relationship evolved slowly, with respect for past traumas and constant attention to the children's well-being. Both attended therapy, individually and as a couple, working through the lingering traces of hurt and distrust that still remained. On the second anniversary of the discovery of Emma, as they had begun to call the day David learned he had a daughter, they decided to take another step forward. During a special dinner with the children, David shared an idea with everyone. "I have something to share with you all," he said, visibly nervous. "What do you think about looking for a new house? One big enough for all of us, where Ethan and Emma can have their own rooms but still be together." The children burst into excited cheers, while Jennifer looked at him with a mix of surprise and emotion. "Are you sure?" she asked when they were alone after putting the kids to bed. "It's a huge step. I've never been more certain of anything in my life," he replied, holding her hands. "We lost 6 years because of a stupid misunderstanding. I don't want to waste another day." The search for the perfect house became a family project. Each had their own requirements. Emma wanted a backyard with trees, Ethan insisted on needing a play area, Jennifer dreamed of a spacious, bright kitchen. David, the architect, focused on the structure and customization potential. Finally, they found it. An older house in Cambridge with a spacious garden, large rooms, and enormous potential for renovations. David immediately began sketching adaptation plans, incorporating ideas from every family member. The move happened the following spring, with the children now turning 7. The first few days were chaotic as expected, but little by little, a new routine settled in. Mornings became a carefully choreographed ballet of getting ready for school and work. Evenings were precious moments of reconnection, sharing stories from the day, helping with homework. Weekends became opportunities to strengthen family bonds even more. Walks in the park, visits to Mrs. Barbara, short trips to nearby towns, movie nights at home with popcorn and soda. The feeling of normalcy came so gradually that by the time they noticed it, it seemed as if it had always been this way. On one of those Saturday afternoons, nearly 3 years after their first reunion in the park, David watched Jennifer playing in the garden with the children. The scene was so perfect, so complete, that he felt a sudden urgency to preserve it forever. That night, after Ethan and Emma had fallen asleep, he found Jennifer on the back porch, enjoying the starry sky with a glass of wine. "I have something to show you," he said, sitting beside her and pulling a small box from his pocket. "What is it?" she asked, curious. David opened the box, revealing not a ring, as one might expect, but a delicate gold chain with a puzzle-shaped pendant. 4 interlocking pieces, each engraved with an initial, DJEE. "This is us," he explained, emotion in his voice. 4 pieces that found each other and fit together, forming something whole and beautiful. Not the way we originally planned, not the most straightforward path, but the way it was meant to be. Jennifer touched the pendant gently, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "It's beautiful, David," she whispered. "It's perfect." "Like us," he replied, leaning in to kiss her softly. "Not perfect individually, but perfect together, with all our flaws and scars." That night, while the rest of the house slept, the two of them stayed on the porch, talking about the future. There was no rush to formalize anything. Marriage would come at the right time when everyone was ready. What truly mattered was the journey they shared, the daily moments of building this family that found its way through pain, loss, and ultimately, redemption. The story of David, Jennifer, Ethan, and Emma was anything but conventional. Born from misunderstandings and separations, it blossomed into a family built on second chances and acceptance, a family that proved sometimes the most winding paths can lead to the most beautiful destinations. That true love isn't the kind that never falters, but the kind that finds the strength to begin again, even after the most painful falls. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us so much as we're just starting out. Now, continuing. Years later, when the children were entering their pre-teen years, the family gathered to celebrate a major milestone, David and Jennifer's wedding. The intimate, emotional ceremony wasn't just the formal union of two people already connected by heart, but a celebration of an extraordinary journey of redemption and rebuilding. Emma, now 12, a confident young girl with curly hair framing her intelligent face, was entrusted with carrying the rings. Ethan, proud in his first suit, escorted his mother down the makeshift aisle in the garden of the home they'd turned into their own. Mrs. Barbara, moved to tears, sat in the front row alongside close family and friends, watching as the circle finally closed. Melissa, who over the years had earned her place in Ethan's life as a steady, positive presence, also attended, bringing her new husband and Ethan's little half-sister from her current marriage. That gathering, some connected by blood, others by choice, all united by love, perfectly captured what David and Jennifer had learned over the years, that families come in all shapes and sizes, and that the truest bond lies in mutual acceptance and the daily commitment to choosing love above all else. During the simple backyard reception, Ethan surprised everyone by asking to give a toast. "When I was 5, he began with a maturity beyond his years, "I asked my dad about my sister. Back then, I didn't even really know what I was asking. I just felt like something was missing." He paused, glancing affectionately at Emma. "Now I know I was right. Something was missing. Actually, a lot of things were missing, but that question started a journey that brought us everything we needed. A sister for me, a father for Emma, and a second chance for my parents." There wasn't a dry eye by the time the young man finished his impromptu toast. David and Jennifer embraced their children, forming the perfect circle they'd worked so hard to build. Life moved forward with the usual challenges of any family. The kids' teenage years brought new worries. Mrs. Barbara's health began to decline with age, and Emma's heart occasionally needed extra care. But every obstacle was met with the strength only a truly united family can have. Not the picture-perfect ideal of fairy tales, but the real, honest imperfection of people who choose every day to stay together, no matter what. On a quiet Sunday afternoon, nearly a decade after that fateful breakfast question, David stood on the porch watching his family. Jennifer, now with silver threads woven into her dark hair, read a book in the garden hammock. Ethan, a lanky 15-year-old, helped. Emma, with a complex science project, spread across the backyard table. The scene was so ordinary and yet so extraordinary that his heart overflowed with gratitude. Grabbing a camera, David discreetly captured the moment, another photograph for the extensive collection documenting every step of this unlikely journey. Next to the first picture of the complete family, taken in that park so many years ago, when they were still pretending to be just friends reuniting by chance. "What are you thinking about?" Jennifer asked, quietly approaching from behind and wrapping her arms around him. "About how one simple question changed everything," he replied, showing her the photo he'd just taken. "Daddy, is my sister coming today?" Who would have thought those words would bring us here? Jennifer smiled, resting her head on her husband's shoulder as they watched their children. "Kids always know, don't they?" she murmured. "Somehow, they see beyond the complications we adults create." David nodded, thinking about how his son, just 5 years old at the time, had sensed a truth he hadn't even known existed. How an innocent question had revealed a world of possibilities. "You know what else I think," he continued, holding his wife close, "that sometimes we need to get completely lost to find our way back home. Our home." That evening, after a family dinner and the usual stories shared around the table, David retreated to his study, where he kept a journal of this extraordinary journey. On the blank page, he carefully wrote, "10 years ago, a child's question changed our lives forever. Daddy, is my sister coming today?" Simple words that unleashed an avalanche of long-hidden truths. In that moment, I froze in fear of the unknown. Today, I try to imagine our life if that question had never been asked, and I can't. Sometimes the greatest gifts come in the most unexpected packages, and some families, like ours, need to be broken to be rebuilt stronger, truer, and more complete. The end life sometimes brings questions that change everything. Have you ever experienced something like this? Share your thoughts on this family journey in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more heartwarming stories.